Breaking Bridget. The AAP, AACAP, CHA declare a national emergency in children's mental health.
Yeah, this actually did break me this week because these stupid organizations were all in favor of the lockdowns and came out and also have been all in favor of all of this craziness around gender and all of these bonkers things that are confusing our children and driving them insane. And they were all on board for all this stuff. And now they're like, oh my God, we have a mental health crisis. And I hate the way these things are framed like, oh, because of COVID. No, it's the government response to COVID, not COVID. If we're going to assign blame, let's assign it accurately. And so many people who dared to suggest that this would be tragic for children who would lose out in years of social development and socialization, schooling, education, and then not only that, they're locked up on Zoom school and then spending all their time on the internet all day while their brains are developing, which is the worst place in the world to be, that maybe perhaps this would be a very negative side effect to these mandates and policies. They were called grandma killers for even suggesting this and shamed and told to shut up. And, oh, you guys are just heartless conservatives. And now you're seeing with young kids that they can't recognize faces and they're having trouble with their social skills, very young kids, because in America, unlike everywhere else in the world, particularly Europe, where they don't mask at those young ages because they found it's detrimental to the kids, we're finding that we're having side effects and consequences. And basically, if you were 13 and you missed out on 2 years of school and then you went back to school, well, you might be 15, but you're still 13 emotionally. You didn't get all of those years. And I can't imagine who would have guessed in an age where we teach fragility is a virtue, where we glorify mental illness, because I feel like there's been an overcorrection from we need to destigmatize mental illness to now glorifying it, as we just covered on our TikTok segment. Who could have foreseen the disastrous consequences of preparing the road for the child instead of preparing the child for the road? I don't know, perhaps the guys who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, perhaps many psychologists who have been warning of this happening to our children. We're encouraging children who are in puberty to lean into gender dysphoria, which is up until recently considered a mental illness. And instead of the watch and wait, just fully go lean into it, take hormones, chop your boobs off, take all of these irreversible things while you're going through this craziness. Every teenager feels awkward in their body when they're going through puberty. You don't tell them, oh, you're trans. That's crazy. And everybody's gotten on board with this. The medical associations, these psychological associations, the pediatrics, the freaking legal. It is egregious, outrageous, and people need to start fighting back and pushing back. You should not lose your license as a therapist if you decide to watch and wait with a child. If you say, hey, maybe let's talk about this. Maybe you had depression and anxiety, because like with these tics and like with a lot of this gender dysphoria, what they're finding is that these kids had anxiety and depression before any of this other stuff manifested. If you want to address things like eating disorders, anxiety, depression, before you start telling them they're trans and that they need to go on hormones that are going to irreversibly affect their lives and their brain development forever. And not even aside from the trans stuff, just everybody's medicated. Everybody. If you want to even be treated by your insurance, you need to basically be diagnosed. So we have incentivizing diagnosing everyone for everything in order for them to even get treatment. And the quickness with which we will put these children on medicine. 6 years old for ADHD. You'll talk to kids, they've been on meds since they were 6, 7 years old because they couldn't sit still in their stupid, boring schools with teachers who have not evolved. They've just been doing the same thing forever, and the kids are bored in a lot of the cases and young, and they took away their recess and they've taken away all these things, and now they're going to put these kids on meds. Sure, there are some people who probably need to be medicated their whole life, but that's like 10% of the population that is on meds now. It's craziness. Whatever happened to just good old-fashioned being well-adjusted? Why are we allowing this culture of fragility and mental illness to thrive. There's no long-term benefits for anyone psychologically by teaching this, by teaching you that you're a victim, by teaching you that you have no resilience, by teaching you that you're fragile and that you have to have the world be just catered to you instead of you being able to handle the challenges as they come to you in the world. No wonder these kids can't handle shit and are having mental breakdowns and learning tics on TikTok. It's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I can't even catch my breath. I mean, emergency visits for suicide attempts increased nearly 51% among girls aged 12 to 17 years old in early 2021 compared to the same period in 2019. So they declare this national health emergency. But on the other hand, you have a generation of therapists and activists basically telling parents and kids, you're going to commit suicide if your reality isn't affirmed wherever you go, whatever reality that is. They're like daring them to kill themselves.
It's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. Who would have ever thought that telling a kid from age 7 in places like California where they start learning this gender shit, that they can just choose whatever gender they want to be would be confusing to a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe disorienting, since it's like one of the most basic fundamental truths of life. Like, we've lost it. We've lost the ability to even have these conversations because people are worried they're going to be called transphobes or bigots, and you've got to stop being afraid of having these conversations. These are your kids' lives at stake, and they are suffering. These kids are struggling. Get the off Instagram or wherever you are, parents, and pay attention to what your kids are doing online and pay attention to what they're absorbing and hearing and give them some good backbone. Yeah, I mean, combine this with technology and a year and a half of being locked up in their homes with no socialization during highly influential years. Of course, I mean, I'm shocked. This is my shocked face. Imagine.